Okay, so I tried to give you a lot of direction and outline to write your lab report. So we're gonna do our titration on Tuesday, and then you'll have a full, at least one class to write your lab report. But then, depending how long it takes you, we'll decide the due date. Like it could be after your unit exam, sort of, if it's taking you a little bit longer. Okay, so lab reports, when you're doing scientific writing, your goal, okay, this is purpose, okay, is to communicate information as efficiently as possible. It's not a fluffy essay, okay? Don't just put in stuff for the sake of putting in stuff, like I know that you do in English class, right? Like you just try and embellish it. Don't do that in science. Just say it how it is, right to the point, right on the money, okay? So need to be clear, concise, to the point. Don't try to write a story or be entertaining. Don't try to make any jokes or do anything fun. I did it in university. You know how I like to make corny jokes. I think that there was some sort of lab that I made a joke in. I got in trouble for that. I got marks taken off. I thought it was funny, but my prof did not. Okay, so use the same font throughout the whole thing. Use Times New Roman. Use size 12 throughout the entire report. You may bold your title headings though, and your report title actually can be size 16. So these are some examples of diction. So instead of saying we found out or we looked into, say we investigated, we researched, we tested, okay, using those science verbs, because then it shows actually what more you did. If you say this was pretty difficult, really hard, or tough, you just say it was difficult. You don't say it's pretty difficult, super hard. Or, you know what I mean? Like, or say, so this is what you don't do, this is what you do. I should have put that. Sorry. Results we achieved through testing, instead of saying that, say observations from the experiment were. Okay? Observations, experiment. Instead of saying a little about titrations, like if you're telling me a little about titrations, no, you just say titrations are. You just tell them. Pretend like you're a robot, okay? Yeah? No? Okay. So nothing fun. Oh, also, don't just restate your results or procedure in the discussion. The discussion is to discuss why your results happened the way they did. So, it would be like, okay, our observations are Matthew's nose is bruised. It is swollen. It hurts to sneeze. Okay, that would be the results. The discussion is, why does it hurt? Well, what happened? Okay, then we discuss why. We don't just say it again. We don't just say all of his symptoms again, okay? So it's just like in the titration, you don't just, in the discussion, don't just tell me all of your results again. Discuss to me why your results were the way they were, okay? Don't just abruptly end your report. Finish with a concluding sentence, okay? I'm going to have to get you to do a little bit with resources, but don't use Wikipedia or Google for your resources, okay? Don't just type in, I typed this into Google, okay? And that's not sufficient. Okay.
Can I have Mr. Adams in grade 4 come sit and write into the
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Perfect.
So you guys feel free to go there and don't talk to them. Just kind of look at them and look at the information.
No, we're doing that. What's me?
He needs to open the window also.
Okay. All right. So this is the rubric then too, but I'm just going to go through with you the outline. So here I made like a sample kind of thing that I want you to follow like to the T, okay? So here it has like your title, your name, comma, partner's name, date lab was performed, your introduction, and again, like I said, you can bold these headings, okay? And see my title is size 16, but everything else needs to be 12. Give me background information about a titration, about 1 to 2 paragraphs. What is a titration? What do people use it for? What's its purpose? Okay. Your experimental question should be 1 to 2 sentences long. This is basically your experimental question I'm giving to you. Okay. You can put it into your own words, but that's kind of the question I'm giving you for the lab. state your prediction and explain your idea of why you think that's your prediction. Oh, materials. I wanted to change this actually to methods and materials. And that you give a list of your detailed materials in bullet form, and then you draw a diagram on your computer. You don't print it off and draw it in with your hand, okay? So you're gonna have to manipulate, like you could put in, different, different shapes of things, okay? And you're gonna have to draw it yourself. Then you say figure 1 and explain what your diagram is. So you don't, you say, like this diagram, or no, here, I just give you an example. This was a report that I did before. So here, okay, so like for this graph, I say figure 1, standard curve displaying the absorbance versus concentration of p-nitrophenol. There's an inserted trend line within the equation of y equals 0.02, blah, blah, blah. So I just like state basically what that graph is, what it's for, what it's doing, okay? But you don't explain the results though. You're just stating what it is, okay? In a paragraph form, outline the variables in your experiment, manipulated, controlled, and responding. In paragraph form, explain how you did it. So that's in detail. Give me all your results. You can make a table, just like we did in class. You need a table title. Write a description of your table here, just like how I said, okay? Then you need to make a graph of your results using an Excel spreadsheet, which I'll show you kind of when we're doing that. And then you say graph 1, and then you write a description of your graph. Say graph here. And your graph will be like those graphs we just did. Okay? If we get the pH meters, then we can actually have data for it, but if we don't, then you can just approximate what it is based on our knowledge of pH graphs. Okay? Then your discussion. In full sentences in paragraph form, answer your experimental question. Manufacturers claim that vinegar is 5% acetic acid. How do your results compare? Calculate percent yield and percent error. In full sentences in paragraph form, explain any sources of error. What would you have done differently? And then you list your resources. So that's going to be basically what you're going to need your resources for is for that introduction paragraph thing that's like, what is a titration? Well, you can't just make it up yourself. You have to cite somebody, and that can include like your textbook. Okay? I'd like you to find 2 resources, and you can't say me. Like you can't just say Mrs. Aiken said so, right? Like you can't do that. It has to be like a published thing. So you can find like a published paper that used titrations and use them. Or you can use your textbook that explains titrations. Yep, anyway, come on in. So the way that you need to cite things is very specific. And most universities use a format called MLA, okay? Have you ever done any citations in social or English? Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
You can just go over regular.
Okay, thanks. So basically, like I gave you a couple examples on what MLA is there. Like if you're going to use your textbook, this is kind of the format that you would follow. And if you use anything else, then just seriously Google MLA format, and it will give you lots of examples, of stuff too. So, and I can help you with all of this stuff. If you get stuck somewhere, I'll help you figure it out, because I want you to figure out how to use Word, how to do the formatting, and I want you to figure out how to use Excel and how to do the formatting. So, and like I tried to make it so that it's really straightforward and you can just see exactly like, okay, this is where I put the title, this is where, and I need you to follow it exactly like the table title, the table, and then table 1, writing the description. Like it has to be exact. And you know what? In university, if you don't format it properly, you get marks taken off. Like seriously, it's crazy. And I was actually a TA in my 3rd and 4th year, I think. TA means like you're a teacher's assistant kind of thing, but it's mostly means you mark lab reports. It sucks. It takes like an hour to mark a lab report. I'm not even kidding. And then I looked at how much I was getting paid, and I'm like, wow, I'm getting paid like $4 an hour. Like, yeah, it's not good. Anyways, But, so I marked lab reports forever, and so my prof would say, like, this is what I expect, and so I'd have to follow every single thing. So that's kind of how I made your marking rubric, is how I would have to do it in university when I was marking them. So here's like your introduction, background information, 4 marks, experimental question, 2 marks, stating your prediction and explaining your idea, 2 marks. Then you get 4 marks just for having appropriate scientific language. Okay, so it's really important. And then 2 marks for any spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Because that's how much they are about formatting. And the reason is because if you go on to do your master's and doctoral, you're going to be publishing actual papers, right? And so everything needs to be a certain format, a certain way, you know what I'm saying? So I did that for each section of your tab, okay? So between the rubric and the outline, you should be able to have a good idea of how to do the lab. It's not going to be, like, I don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, so much work, so much detail. I want this to be a learning experience so that you don't feel overwhelmed if you have to write a lab report in university or college. This is the time to figure it out so that later you're not freaking out, okay? So I'm going to give you enough time and enough support to do this, so don't worry, okay? And I'm printing both these out for you. But just to give you an idea of what it looks like, this was like a report that I did. So see how the formatting is very like specific. This is my introduction. It was something about enzymes. I don't even remember what I was doing. For my methods and materials, I was just allowed to refer to my lab handout. These are my results. Lots of results. And then here's my discussion explaining. Okay? And then here's my resources. And then my appendix. Generally, they like you to show like detailed, oh, I didn't put that in your thing, but detailed calculations can go in the appendix. Yeah. So generally, lab reports like this will take about 8 hours to get. So, and a lot of it is the formatting. It's just making sure it's every single detail. But you know what? When I would do these labs, I actually learned a lot because I would seriously sometimes in labs I have no idea what I'm doing. You just follow the instructions, right? You just follow the instructions and you write down your results. And then 8 hours later, after you've done it.